never feel the way I feel. You don't know if my love is real. Baby, listen to me, here's the deal. When you're not here.
But Joshua, what's the holdup? Do we have enough doses, or is it something else? Are we distributing this just like the flu vaccine, except with a cold chain?
I think there are two issues. One is there seems not to be a great deal of understanding of how much is getting made and where it's going. And hopefully that will resolve as the new administration works with the manufacturers to get more of a rhythm going. But the second issue is there aren't enough doses for everybody who not only wants one, but for everyone in the risk groups that have been told they're eligible. And so that's created, it's going to create a shortage situation until the supply really eases. And there's look, when there's not enough, you can move them around, but there's still going to be a lot of people who want the vaccine, feel like they, are eligible for the vaccine because they are, but can't get it. And we're stuck in this situation for probably at least a matter of weeks, maybe a few months.
Okay, just seconds ago.
A new strain of virus has brought the world to its knees.
The virus, they're working hard. Looks like by April, it miraculously goes away. I hope that's true.
Some countries are managing to protect the public. Others are failing.
We're at war.
This is serious. Take it seriously.
In a race against this deadly disease.
Dr. Gottlieb, I wonder, you said earlier this week that the problem with the antibody drugs, that there appears to be issues being able to administer them, could bode poorly for the ability to administer these vaccines in the community as well. And I just wonder your thoughts about, are we going to run into these backlogs in the last mile, as you've been talking about?
Well, it's a little bit of a different situation. The antibody drugs are sitting on the shelf right now. They have a shelf life, so they're not being lost. I think that there might be some concern that they'll ship vaccine and not all the vaccine will get used. I think that that's not going to be an issue here because the vaccines right now, for this month at least, are being distributed into nursing homes by CVS and Walgreens and into hospitals to healthcare workers. I think that those parties can handle a lot more vaccine and distribute it. The challenge is going to be in January when you're trying to distribute it in the community. You have to go out and find eligible patients to vaccinate. That's going to be more difficult. But I think they could have pushed out a lot more vaccine through the hospitals this month in what they're doing. We could have vaccinated many more people. And again, I come back to the point, this is the peak of the epidemic. The vaccines are partially protective, although we don't understand how much, but the data does suggest that. And most people concluded that based on the data. So I don't think I'm making a leap there in saying that. And if we can get more protective immunity into people more quickly over the next week or two, that's good. That potentially can have an impact on the epidemic. 3-4 weeks from now, if we vaccinate more people, it's not going to have the same level of impact.
Sorry? No.
Dat het ontoelaatbaar is en dat elk normaal mens daar alleen met afschuw kennis van kan nemen. Je vraagt je werkelijk af, wat bezielt deze mensen? Het heeft niets te maken met protesteren. Het is crimineel geweld en dat zullen we ook als zodanig behandelen. Het heeft ook niks te maken wat we zagen met strijden voor de vrijheid. We nemen al deze maatregelen niet voor onze lol. We doen dat omdat we vechten tegen het virus en het is het virus wat ons de vrijheid op dit moment beneemt. En door dat virus moeten we die rotmaatregelen nemen, zoals de scholen dicht op dit moment. De avondklok, het feit dat we elkaar minder kunnen zien, dat we 1,5 meter afstand moeten houden. En we moeten die strijd tegen het virus winnen, want alleen zo krijgen we onze vrijheid terug.
For a second day, protesters are angry over what they see as the government's mishandling of the coronavirus pandemic. A surge in new infections led to talk of curfews and a lockdown. Critics say the sharp spike in cases is the fault of Serbia's president, who lifted an earlier lockdown ahead of recent elections.
Is COVID-19 going to magically disappear, Dr. Fauci?
I do not believe it would disappear because it's such a highly transmissible virus. It is unlikely that it's going to disappear.
Does wearing a mask give people COVID-19?
Does wearing a mask give it? No.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
All right. Is COVID-19 a hoax?
No.
Should people take hydroxychloroquine as a cure for COVID-19?
The overwhelming cumulative evidence of properly conducted randomized controlled trials indicate no therapeutic efficacy for hydroxychloroquine.
Can people cure themselves of COVID-19 by injecting themselves with disinfectant or bleach? I'm sorry?
No.
This morning, as demand for doses dramatically outweighs supply, frustrations are mounting over a national vaccine shortage.
Last time I came, the line was around the block.
In New Jersey, a former racetrack turned vaccine megasite can inoculate 2,400 people a day. But right now, they're only doing a quarter of that.
Because we need more vaccines here, we just can't fill up all of the working stations.
This is the supply hub for Bergen County. It's filled with PPE, medical supplies, and of course, the freezers to store the COVID vaccine. They have the capacity to store more than 1 million doses. But right now, the allocation they're getting all fits into this container.
When is this finally going to end? That's the question on everyone's minds after a full year living through the COVID-19 pandemic. The new administration does not have a clear timeline.
We are not in a place where we can predict exactly when everybody will feel normal again.
When do I think things will get back to normal? I've been cautioned not to give an answer to that because we don't know for sure.
But some public health experts say we do have an answer, and you're not going to like it. COVID-19 is never going to end.
You know, we've been told that this virus will disappear, but it will not. This is a virus like other viruses that's now part of our ecosystem. It's part of our environment. We need to control it. We need to diminish its impact, but it's going to be around hassling us for the foreseeable future. And by that, I mean years.
The World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic on March 11th, 2020.
Pandemic is not a word to use lightly or carelessly.
Today, scientists say this pandemic is on its way to the next level, an endemic disease.
There are 3 words we use. Epidemics, where the virus can affect a very large proportion of our national population. There's the pandemic. That's when entirely new viruses come on the global scene. Endemic means that the virus is always in our population in some form, smoldering along and occasionally causing outbreaks.
We already live with many endemic diseases. The flu is one, measles is another. We've had vaccines for both of them for decades. Even COVID-19 is just a novel version of coronaviruses that were already with us.
We have a great vaccine against the measles virus, and still 100,000 children a year are killed by measles. The more infectious a microbe is, the harder it is to control. COVID is very challenging to control, and the new variants suggest that we may end up playing kind of a game of cat and mouse.
Even if we vaccinate everybody we possibly can, there will still probably be some people who choose not to get vaccinated or who maybe can't be vaccinated because of their personal health issues. So we have pockets of the population where the virus continues to spread and be susceptible.
The only disease in modern history that was completely eradicated is smallpox. It spread slowly, and people who had it developed a distinctive rash, making it easier to identify and control. But COVID is highly contagious, and many people who have it don't show any symptoms. Scientists say that makes it nearly impossible to contain.
Do you know if I have COVID just by looking at me? No. So that's part of the factor.
COVID-19 also spreads to both humans and animals, meaning it could always be circulating in our environment.
We have given it back to other animals. And so now we have not only its original animal reservoir, but also potentially other animal reservoirs. And it's pretty unrealistic to think that we can eliminate a virus from both the human population and from its natural reservoirs.
But this doesn't mean COVID will always disrupt our lives like it does now. Like any other endemic disease, it's something we can learn to live with.
Flu is a really serious, nasty virus. Makes many people sick each year, kills many people, but familiarity breeds, if not contempt, at least a certain nonchalance. Could it be down the road that we become so familiar with COVID that we develop a certain nonchalance about it also? Yes, we tend to do that in the United States.
So what does our future look like with COVID-19?
The third, fourth, and fifth years of COVID should not be anywhere close to as awful as the first one. The winter or the fall of 2025, we might have to roll up one sleeve for the flu shot and the other sleeve for the COVID shot. We'll have Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's celebration all together, but we'll be more attentive as to who attends, and we'll make sure that everyone's vaccinated. Senior citizens, people with underlying illnesses might indeed start wearing the masks much more often. Many of us will no longer be quite as carefree as we used to be. We'll be more careful for our own sake and for the sake of people around us.
So instead of going back to normal, we'll keep creating a new normal.
She had pneumonia caused by the coronavirus. By now, the health authorities and hospitals in Germany were bracing for disaster. Suddenly, there was growing public concern about the potential impact of a COVID-19 outbreak. The WHO recommends countries stockpile personal protective equipment in order to be prepared for a pandemic. However, there was a shortage in Germany.
The authorities rely on getting as many people as you can with the first dose in the hope of some kind of protection. What does the science behind that tell us?
Well, the best science is based on the clinical studies that show this tremendous 95% effectiveness with 2 doses. That's really what the science shows. Everything else is a presumption. People are looking at the antibodies levels, they're looking at other things, and they're hoping that if you just give 1 dose, you'll get some protection, and maybe that's a different kind of strategy. I think we have to balance the need to jump out and try to do everything we can in this instant with the long-term confidence we need to build a vaccine program that can end the pandemic. And my concern with saying, well, we know the science is 95%, but let's try this other thing, is that that could undermine the long-term, well, we are using science here to defeat the virus.
From being infected by the disease?
No, of course not.
All right. Dr. Fauci, the European governments are in a completely different place. They've got the disease on the run. In fact, the Asian countries have the disease on the run. I saw some remarkable figures. Almost every other country on earth is doing far, far better than the United States, except for Brazil, whose president has followed President Trump's policies. But we have 153,000 dead. Canada, our next door neighbor, has less than 9,000. We have 17 times the number of deaths from it. China, which of course is much larger than the United States, has lost 4,661 people. We've lost 153,000 people. Our rate of death is 36 times higher than China, and on and on. Do we have the financial resources and the scientific expertise in America to do what other governments have done to bring the infection rate down to something manageable so the end is in sight of this nightmare?
Or both of these FDA meetings, that it provides, I think it was slightly more than 50% protection after the first dose. The issue is, and I've talked about this at length with Moncef Slaoui from Operation Warp Speed, including on our Healthy Returns live stream earlier this week, is that there aren't data showing if you didn't get that second dose, how long that protection would last. And he is very concerned that if you start just giving 1 dose without the absolute certainty you have that second dose, then you're kind of going off label and you're sort of going in the face of all of these promises to adhere to the rigors of the clinical trial process and what has been proven. But just quickly, guys, I think that's a very important issue, but I also want to ask Dr. Gottlieb, because the reason we're talking about this tension with Pfizer and HHS right now, I think, is because there is this backdrop of the negotiation over trying to get more doses in the second quarter of next year. Dr. Gottlieb, you have told us that Pfizer offered these to the U.S. government as recently as November after the efficacy data. We've heard different accounts of this from HHS and from Dr. Slaoui, who say they didn't see the data when they were offered the doses. What's going on now? Are they actually going to be able to reach a deal on this? Why is this taking so long, and why does there appear to be such bad blood?
Yeah, I'll just say, just to back up for a second, I agree with everything Meg said about the dosing schedule. People need the second dose. I mean, even if the first dose is partially protective, we don't know how long that protection lasts. We've only studied it with 2 doses, and we only know the durability of the protection after the second dose. So you do need to get the second dose, but you could, take some risk that the manufacturing hopefully is going to keep up, which it should. We have not seen manufacturing problems once these manufacturing processes have started. As far as the negotiations, I stand by everything I said on this show about what's been offered when. But, there's discussions going on. I hope those are going to be fruitful for the American people. So I just don't want to get in front of the discussions that are going on between the company and the government right now. And I'm frankly probably not privy to all the details related to that anyway, so I'm not the best spokesperson for that. So I'll leave that to Pfizer to comment on, and the secretary and his...
It's completely strange that things are getting out of hand. People are losing their mind. I can imagine it in some way, but we all have to deal with the same situation here. And I think that we have to remain calm. And I think the government is doing a great thing, keeping things under control, and making for all of us as soon to be getting outside as soon as possible we can.
I think we should be allowed to live our lives, to be honest. I think there is a virus out there, but I don't think the world should be shut down for it. I think we should just be, it can be contained, and I think we should be allowed to live our lives, and all the shops should be open. I think the people should just open up and live our lives. That's my honest opinion.